on my back, and I never forget, all I hear is I looked up through the corner of my eye, I could see the silhouette of a guy going, "Doo, Ray." That's what it fucking sounds like. In my head, I'm going, you got to get up. I weathered the storm. Paul's talking to me in the corner, and he reckons for the first 20 seconds, it was like a blank canvas, until I finally just twitched, and he goes to me, "Hey, I told you not to mix any more than fucking 4 punches with this guy. That's it, blah, blah, blah," whatever it was.
Tony Doherty here for the Relentless Momentum podcast. It's episode number 5, Relentless Momentum. Never quit, never stop. And our special guest today is a good mate of mine, the one and only Sam Greco. Welcome, Sam. How are you?
Thanks for having me on the show, mate.
Oh, mate, honestly, you're one of the first people I wrote down when I started to make my list of guests. So what a story you've got. And this is all about telling your story. And I'm not a hard-hitting investigative journalist or any of those types.
Thank God for that.
We've both had a few of those, haven't we? No, mate, I just want to have a chat. And I just think you've got a great story to tell. I've known you since I first moved to Brunswick in 1994, but you've been here your whole life.
Yeah, I grew up in Brunswick, and West Brunswick that was,
Yeah?
So, Brunswick's changed in many, many ways. I mean, when I was growing up back in the early 70s, rough and tough area. You pretty much had to hold your own. Respect was earned, respect wasn't given. And coming from a family too, with immigrants, both my parents coming from Italy, knew no one here, and
Sicilians?
Sicilians, yeah. Sicilians made a life here out of nothing.
Well, I think that's what Brunswick was. It was just even when I moved here, it was a real melting pot. Where all the guys our age, all my mates who become great lifetime mates, were all kids of immigrants, Italians, Lebanese, Greeks mostly, particularly Lebanese and Italians in Brunswick back then. And I could see it changing almost as soon as I got here. The property prices were going up, and the parents were going, maybe we'll move out to suburb by 2 house, and they did. But it was a great way to grow up. There was a lot of factories, a lot of manufacture and stuff in Brunswick back then. And, mum and dads all worked. So the kids kind of had to, like you said, fend for themselves and grew up tough.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, I learned a lot of great lessons from there. And parents, dad was obviously the breadwinner, but mum also worked at the same time. But besides her going out, working, her other work was at home, looking after the household. So they did a remarkable, both parents in those days did a remarkable job, never complained. You had nothing to complain. Who are you going to complain to? So they, I learned some very valuable lessons on what life was truly about. And if you wanted something, you had to fend for yourself.
And where did your dad work?
He's a motor mechanic. So when he first came to Australia, his sister was here, and she was over in Gippsland on a spud farm. And so Dad, when he landed here, he went over to Murba North and opened up, or was working in a motor mechanic shop over there, and that's how it all started for him, And then from there, Mum came over a year later, and they found a place here in Brunswick, bought a place in Brunswick, and obviously, it wasn't easy for them. They couldn't just go out and get a loan, so they borrowed money from family friends and eventually paid each other off. And that's how it was like, hey, it's like me coming to Australia for the first time, and I know you're back overseas, and I go, hey, Tony, this place here is fantastic. You need to come over here. So you'd come over a year later, and I'd help you a little bit financially, and you'd find a job, 1 or 2 jobs, 3 jobs if that was the case, and then eventually pay me off, and then you tell your friend about it and so on. And that's how it was with all the
that's how
logs,
Brunswick
so to
was
speak.
built, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. It was very, very ethnic in those areas too. A lot of Greeks, a lot of Italians, especially in those areas. But it was tough. It was a tough upbringing. And, when I look back, I probably wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. I wish that was implemented in today's world, to be honest.
Yeah, do you think it's all gone a little bit too woke, too soft?
I without even, I grew up that way, and I didn't grow up to be a bad kid. I mean, I was a naughty kid, but I knew my boundaries. I feared what was at home rather than what I feared on the streets. So I knew. Yeah, so you exactly right. So, in today's world, is there respect for parents? Is there respect for parents? I mean, I shouldn't say
parents and elders in general. It's just like even to this day, if someone's older than me or I meet an old person, I feel obliged to be polite, to help them out, to have my best, most impeccable manners. It's just how I was brought up. I would have got a backhanded when I was a kid. If I spoke to an adult, in a bad way, we'll get ready to duck.
Yeah.
You know, whereas now, you know, they answer back to teachers, to their parents, to police,
To authorities,
get
yeah.
abused. I mean, it's terrible.
You'd probably remember this. I remember growing up, and you know, you'd see the police, you know, driving down the street, and you're with your mates, and you're like, "Hey, shh, police, police!" And you'd sort of be upright, wait for them to go past, and you wouldn't say anything. Oh, they're gone. You know, we'd walk off. And today, you know, you're there and you see the police, and you go, "Oh, there your fucking fingers are going up and shit
terrible.
like
I
that."
know,
Mate, the coppers. If we did that to the coppers, and it's happened to me, you know, growing up, and I was being a bit rude and cheeky and giving a copper a bit of a lip, and he got me. And literally brought me over to the phone box, opened the phone box, pulled out a Yellow Pages, put it on my head.
Oh, you got that one too?
Yeah, I copped one of those too. And
I got one of them. Bendigo, I said, "What's with the phone book?" He said, "It doesn't leave any bruises."
It doesn't leave any bruises.
He put it on your head. I won't mention it. I still remember his name, and he'd thump it. He'd do like a hammer fist down the phone book, and you'd go weak at the knees. And then he'd take your six pack and give you a boot up the bum as you took off.
Yeah, and you know,
Yes, sir.
the worst thing about it, after copping that beating, is as I was walking off, and he goes, my dad's name was Vic. And he turned around and he said to me, "And if you do that again, son," he goes, "I'll tell your father, Vic." And that was it. And it was like, this hot chill went through me. It was like, "Oh, all right, you got my respect." But there was a bit of respect, you know, as I said to you, and unfortunately in today's world, you don't see it. And I would just wish it was implemented a bit more.
I think so. I think, you know, that you know, everyone's got all these rights, and the teachers and the kids. I mean, like, if I'd mess up at school, I'd hope to hell Dad wouldn't find out, because it'd be worse than what I get at school.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the kids get in trouble at school, the parents go down and yell at the teachers for offending their poor little kid. And I mean, God, it was the complete opposite. Like, whatever I'd get at school, I'd hope Dad wouldn't find out, because he'd double it. You know, it was like, you know. And,
No, it was tough, but we learned some great lessons. That's all that matters.
Anyway, so you grew up, were you pretty sporty? I know you started, your first love was soccer.
Yeah, look, I was very sporty. In fact, I was an outdoor kid. Hated being indoors. I couldn't sit still watching TV. I just wanted to get out, kick a soccer ball, play cricket, kick a football, whatever it may be. But I sort of took a love to soccer. And I played at a very young age. I started at the age of 6. I think I was 6 when I started playing for Juventus over in Brunswick. And it's Sumner Park over in Brunswick there, just off Nicholson Street. And I'll never forget, it was just a passion that I had, just running around chasing a ball, you know. I had no idea. I was only a youngster, but as the years went on, I developed a great love for it and skill. And if you ever wanted to find me, you'd find me in the backyard. If I wasn't playing soccer or training, I'd be at home kicking a ball against the wall, just back and forth, forming my own little routines of, you know, kicking a ball and dribbling around a carton box or something. It was just what I did, and I just loved being out there. And my mum used to scream at me, "Come inside, it's cold out there," and blah, 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 "it's time to eat." I was constantly outside. That's where you'd find me.
Well, when we grew up, it was the same. We lived in a court, and we'd either be playing footy or cricket or doing monos on our bikes or whatever, until it got dark and dinner was ready, and Mum would call it. There was no thought of going inside before that. It was just like, you stayed out till it was dark, and then to come in, there was like 2 channels to watch anyway, so it wasn't streaming and, you know, YouTube or anything like that. It was just like we had one tally.
But isn't it interesting? You just mentioned about, you know, when it started to get dark. When it started to get dark, what was the purpose? Once it got dark, you were supposed to be home.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was the rule.
It wasn't about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Once it got dark, bang.
And did you have to ride your bike to school and to soccer training and all that?
I was fortunate. My school was across the road, so that was the beauty of it. Did I ride a bike? Yeah, I used to ride a bike around everywhere. And I thought I was a tough kid, because we used to be a group of 3 or 4 of us that used to ride around, and we used to peg our bikes with cards on the back of the wheel. It used to make a noise, and here he comes. Yeah. So we used to do all silly stuff like that. But it was all fun and games, and you know, it was really good. It was I use the term growing up. It was just learning different stuff.
Our mums didn't drop you off at school or
No,
pick you up. Mum didn't
no.
have a car. I mean, what are you going to do? Get the bus or ride your bike. That's it. So we sort of grew up the same way, even though I was in a little country town. But you know, I did an interview with Jay Mulcoon a couple of weeks ago, and I said, when I come to Brunswick, I really did learn more about family, because I grew up in like an all-white town, you know, where there wasn't a whole lot of ethnic kids, and you know, it was the people who had the fish and chip shop, and that was about it. I come down here and I saw such a sense of love and respect and family, and how everyone looked out for each other and did things together, and it's really had an impact on me. You know, the way I've brought my kids up to be really close and to keep them close. You know what I mean? in an old school sort of way. So soccer, how far did it take you? Did you travel with it? Did you become really competitive?
Locally I became really competitive. And at the age of 15, I was the youngest Australian soccer player who'd make the first. I was just turning 16.
And were you tall? Always tall?
Oh, look, I think it was about close to 6 foot at the time. Close to about 5'11", 5'12",
Okay.
at the time. But just had the will to friggin' die while I was playing. I just loved it. I had really strong passion. And I made my debut against another NSL team, which is National Soccer League, which is what equivalent to what the Premier League is today, or the A-League is today. Yeah. And I remember making my debut at Gillen Oval in Brunswick against Footscray Just. And that was the start of a lot of great things. I thought, this is fantastic. How's this, And I started to be a little, I used to have my own little fan when I used to go back to school. Oh, you play on the weekend? Because the beauty was that I'd be able to play on the weekend and then go home on a Monday afternoon and watch Captain Socceroo. And they'd televise a game.
Right.
So it was really cool, So I became a bit of a local hero amongst my friends, and it was really cool. Until, a year later I had a contract issue. I'd been with the club for so long, I thought I was a free agent to go. I got offered by my state and national coach at the time to go over to Heidelberg United, which is another NSL side. And unfortunately, Juventus wouldn't allow me to go as a free agent. There were some things that tied up there, but it was problematic for me because my parents, they worked very, very hard. They didn't have the money to support me financially if it went to court. And my dad's immediate thing was, that's fine. They're not going to let you go as a free agent. You finish up. And I go, what? He goes, you finish up. And here is a sport that was the love of my life. And all of a sudden, I was just like a dagger had been stabbed into my heart. But what he was trying to do, he says, mate, I just want my son to enjoy himself. I don't want all this financial stuff involved. I don't have the money to fight it, and you knew that. So he thought, well, if I ain't going to win, you ain't going to win. And my son's out. So I sort of stepped back. And
what were you, like 15, 16?
I was 16 at the time, and then just to turn 16. And then, he said to me, well, you're not going to do that. Why don't you go back to martial arts? And I'm thinking, I don't know. It's it wasn't my love then. And I sort of went back forcefully because my dad sort of shared the same principles as martial arts in terms of the discipline, the honour and everything else. Obviously the way he grew up and him being in the military at the time and doing a bit of boxing and so on. So he knew all about that, and he just wanted me, he didn't want me to be one of those kids that was loose. He wanted me to grow up with respect and so on. So he took me over, and honestly, for the first couple of months, I hated it. I did. And then, I don't know what it was, within a month after that, I just found a love for it.
Like a Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
You want to be a hockey player, but he was a great golfer. You want to be a soccer player.
Yeah.
Become a world champion in kickboxing and martial arts. Had you always been like street fighting and grow up scrapping and carrying on, or did you start martial arts when did that come in? Was that while you were playing soccer when you first started?
So just to give you a bit of history, back when I was 7, my dad took me to martial arts. I sort of lasted 2 months. My sister was doing it at the time. That's why he took me over there. And I just didn't like it. I just wanted to stick to soccer. Then obviously at the age of 15, 16, when all this happened, he suggested I go back. And I sort of had those little fond memories that I really didn't like it. That's why. So I sort of went there with a sort of really negative, bad attitude.
Yeah.
But a couple of months later, it sort of changed my mind. It changed my mind. I started to see that it wasn't that bad. Because, look, growing up, you know yourself, it was easy to take instructions sometimes off a stranger than what it was your father, right? But
completely.
But here I was, my dad telling me what to do and how to do it. And then when I got there, it was one of his mates who was teaching. And I'm thinking, I've got to wear a karate gi. I've got to wear a belt. I've got to bow when I walk in. Hey, too many rules here, Yeah. But, as much as I hated that, I started to relish it after a while and started to understand what it was all about. And those sort of principles there have really, today, it's just life in general. It's the way I treat people.
I know you really well. You're one of the most disciplined, respectful people I've ever met. And I wonder, like playing soccer, when you talk about developing your own routines, your own discipline, your own kind of work ethic, I think that was just in you, like bred into you almost nature rather than nurture. That it's always been, as long as I've known your nature, to be the very best you can at what you do. So you're getting into martial arts, you're a big kid, you're 16, bowing, wearing the gi and all this kind of thing. Did you think then you'd start doing competitions and get better? When did it go from that to like professional fighting?
Oh, so there's a bit of a time there, but I started competing at the age of 16, the end of age of 16, close to 17, locally. It was all state stuff, inter-club stuff, and then state stuff.
Karate?
It was full bare knuckle karate, yeah. So you could kick to their head, knee to their head as hard as you want, no protective gear, but you couldn't punch directly to the face. You kick to the legs, knee to the body, and all that. So it was what they call the bare knuckle. It was Kyokushin was renowned as one of the strongest martial arts worldwide, and so I started competing sort of locally, and sort of started to make road for myself. Besides being bruised and battered, I started to make a road for myself, and all of a sudden, it's that taste of victory that we can't deny that we don't like it. Yeah. Everyone likes to win, whether it be the lottery or whether it be competition. You love to win, and I think people love to win, but there's the majority hate the process of trying to get there.
Yeah,
because it's hard.
It's true.
It's fucking tough. Simple. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Right.
So that's what makes us unique. And I don't know. Honestly, I fell in love with it. And
do you think the high was because it was an individual sport rather than a team sport? Or it was kind of you against you rather than being part of a team where other people can let you down? If you do everything that you have to do to go into a fight knowing you're fully prepared, then it's your win.
It's funny you say that. It's the comparison. People say, how does it compare? I said, mate, it's like night and day. When playing football, for argument's sake, or playing soccer, if I miss a ball goes past me, one of my teammates might pick it up. If it goes past him, someone else might pick it up. We've got an 11-1 in chance for one of our guys to pick it up, so to speak. Whereas in the fight game, when it's one-on-one, I miss, I wear it, I cop it. So it really, when I say it defines you in a very special way, this one-on-one sports. Yeah. It's a sport where it's me versus you. And it's quite fucking dangerous. Quite dangerous. That's why your preparation, my preparation, even as an amateur, I'm so grateful I had some great coaches who didn't let me off the hook so easy, who'd made me stay back, who, when I say punish me for the right reasons. They weren't rude or anything. They just punished me for the right reasons. It really made me think about what I was doing, but most of all, why I was doing it. You want this, you need to do this, this, and this. And, once you go through that process, you don't look back. You don't look back. It just makes you so forget the physical strength, because we all can be physically strong, and somewhere it's that mental strength.
It really is, Sam. And I think with the fight game, whether it's kickboxing, boxing, full contact, or UFC now, whatever it may be, that sometimes when people have had it too easy or they just do the bare minimum, they're going to get hurt because there's someone that's come from a worse environment than you, someone who's come up with nothing, who's hungrier, nastier, and will leave no stone unturned. In fact, I was helping someone the other day, he's going to be a professional fighter, and I said, let's have a look at your nutrition. He goes, I'll just eat anything. I'll go, well, someone your age and your size has got a dietitian or is so strict with their meals, they never have sugar, they never have a can of Coke, they never have fish and chips. They just fuel for their body, and they're going to beat you up. And he looked at me like I was an enemy. I go, bro, this is the difference between being an amateur and a pro, because someone out there, it could be the 1%. Like if you're both even, then who did the extra session? Who ate cleanest? Who got the most sleep? You know what I mean? That 1% absolute preparation. I've seen you in your preparation, man. You're like a machine. Yeah,
it's funny you say that. Everyone wants to be a pro until you got to work out what a pro needs to do, and there's a lot of stuff that people think they can get away with. You might get away with it today, you might get away with it tomorrow, but when it gets you, it's going to get you fucking hard, and you might not come back from it. So
right in your game, it can be.
It's detrimental. It's super detrimental, and that's why I'm saying it's. The majority of people that will come into our sport go, oh, fucking train hard. I do this, I do so many hours, and I do 10 sessions a week, and blah. I go, yep. And what about the rest? Well, I got to rest. I said, what about your nutrition? What about your recovery? What about your mentoring? What about this? What about that? Your psychology? Oh, fuck, I didn't think it was that important. let me tell you, it's probably more important than just the physical stuff, because we're so, unfortunately, they're so structured. All their training is all physical,
Yeah.
rather than mental. I mean, even with my guys today, I break, the moment we know who we're fighting when I'm coaching, the moment I know who one of my boys is fighting, I break down that boy in all different areas. Then once I've got a whole breakdown, the strengths, weaknesses, what he does, repetitive, general comments, and everything else, then I sit with my fighter, we watch some tapes, and I ask him to do exactly the same before I give him my notes. And then we compare notes. And then we put a plan of attack together. So it takes a lot more than people think. It's the general public will always see the final picture, whether the guy's got his hands up in the air victorious, and then people look, mate, that was a great win. Fuck, you're lucky. Lucky fucking bullshit. If you knew the amount of hours of blood, sweat and tears that I've gone in, the days where I just couldn't even fucking walk, that I had to get up and still show up, That's what makes me who I am.
And we see that with bodybuilding because it's such a unique and individual sport where you don't get a day off, and the mental side's important, the diet, the training, everything else, but you don't get punched in the head. I mean, that's the biggest difference. And fighting, when it comes down to one-on-one, it's war. You know what I mean? And I know how hard it is with my sport, with bodybuilding, and how, working with people's mental side to get them right. And also from when they go from an amateur to a pro. I'm like, you're starting all over again. Oh, no. So no, stop it. If you're playing local footy and you get drafted at Carlton or Collingwood, one of these teams, and you're starting all over again, you might not ever get a kick.
No.
And it's a little bit like that, whether it's bodybuilding or footy or the fight game. When you turn pro, all of a sudden you've got someone out there who's doing this to fight their way out of poverty or to make a living or to set themselves up for a future after fighting. If you go in there a little bit lightheaded or lighthearted, or lack of prep, you can get really badly hurt.
The biggest thing I find, Tony, in this, and you'll probably see it through bodybuilding, you see it through probably all sports, business, life in general, the biggest disease is complacency. When people start getting complacent, when they start getting in this comfort zone, that's when you start to lose. I've always found that, and I keep telling my guys, that's why, I often get guys that I'm training, they go, mate, why'd you do that fucking today? Why? I said, I pull the rug from under you so you don't get fucking complacent. I want you to be comfortable in the most uncomfortable times. That's when I know I've got you. Yeah? And that's the only time you're going to be fucking successful. Life's not all about this cruisy thing. If you think life's about a cruise, it's a rude awakening. And brings me to my point. Brings me to a point. I said this before. What we teach at school, what they're teaching at school today. They teach you about. They don't want to teach you about the first, second, first place. There's no competition. It's about participation. Yeah. But when you get in this fucking real world, what is it? It's about winning. Business is about winning.
Everything.
You don't run a business making a fucking loss. It's about winning. Why is that guy doing better than what I am? Let me have a look. Oh, is that why? Boom. And be competitive. Yeah, it's no different. That's why complacency is cancerous.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's so easy for people in the comfort zone to do things when they're motivated. But what I've noticed, what sorts people out, is the ones who do the hard shit when they don't feel like it. Every single day.
That's discipline, but that's discipline. What you just created there is discipline. When you do stuff when you don't feel like doing it, that's when you know you're disciplined. Fucking get out and do it. And I've seen you, mate. You've come from the bottom.
Yeah.
And I remember, and it probably hits a nerve when I say this, and I remember sitting with you, you telling me stories and telling me how you've got these ideas and everything else. Look where we're sitting today.
Yeah.
You've come a fucking long way.
Thanks,
mate. There's a lot of people out there that perhaps would have liked to see you fail.
A lot, yeah. A lot thought I would.
But that's exactly your fuel of motivation.
Yeah, look, a lot of people really wrote me off and thought I'd fail, and I always thought underestimating me is the greatest thing I can let people do, because then I can work in silence and people don't expect anything, but I'm thinking and I'm plotting and I'm working. But all I did, Sam, for 30 years, I got up every single day.
Showed up?
And just showed up and did as much as I could to make it better. Even when I had nothing, back in the days when I first met you at Union Street, I couldn't afford equipment. I'd paint walls, I'd move the equipment around, I'd never sit still, because I never wanted someone to walk in and just catch me reading a magazine or scrolling or doing some dumb shit, because I thought, well, looks like I don't care about the place. And when you first start out, you think you know everything. You probably are a bit of a fuckwit, which makes it easy for people to write you off and go, oh, look at this clown country boy thinks he's hitting a bit, And I had to, when I first moved here, to destroy that ego. And that first year, I had nowhere to live. I slept on the couch at Union Street for a year and didn't tell anyone, because that's all I had left. I've still got my dignity. I'll get up every morning, I'll go get a paper and come and pretend I've come from somewhere when I unlock the door. And, you know, it was only years later I told people that, and oh, really? I go, it's the only way I can keep the doors open. How many times I got the power cut off, you know, and it nearly got evicted. I'm like, it doesn't matter, we'll just find a way. And so thanks.
But you never gave up, but that's what I'm saying. I look at you, and not because I'm sitting in here, I've said this before to other people, it's when you've got a dream, if you can dream big and you know exactly where you want to be, your final destination, you can create. And that's exactly what you did. And mate, I've walked in the gym and I go, mate, what are you doing? And you go, well, I'm just deciding where I want this other equipment moved around. I go, well, didn't we move it the other day? But that's just you. That's your character. You know, it's you like to do stuff, and that's why this business is so successful for you. You know, and you are. I've said it before. You're the godfather of bodybuilding, as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks,
you know?
mate. Yeah. Well, it's been a good ride, you know, and it's the same people often say I got lucky, you know, being partners with Arnold. You know, it was a 20-year plan and process and self-belief and just work so that when he was going to come to Australia, I was going to be the only choice. And I've told that story before.
But you planted the seed, that's
absolutely,
what I'm saying.
Absolutely planned every part of it. And it might not have come off, but if I hadn't been prepared, it definitely wouldn't have. So you just got to go all in with your dream and think, you know, if it doesn't come off, just enjoy the process. And I think back to fighting or whatever you play, whatever sport you're in, you've got to love it.
Of course
you've really got to love it. I mean, showing up day after day, like you said, getting out of bed when you're sore and you're battered and your shins are bleeding, you've had your nose broken again, and your coach or your trainer is not going to let you off. No. You know you've got to show up. Now, you've got to love it. You can't just pretend that you love it and go show up when you're sore and hurt. You've really got to have something inside that says, I want this more than I want comfort. You know, and I've seen you, man, you've been unbelievable through that fight career. So let's go back. So you turned pro with kickboxing?
I turned pro with full contact karate, bare knuckle. I had one of my last fights here back in early 90s. And I fought at the Entertainment Centre, I think it was, and I fought a guy by the name of Bob Crawford, policeman. It was an ex-copper from Queensland, and it was on a Christopher Cronus show.
Well, I remember, yeah.
And I'll never forget, it was probably the fight that sort of changed my life. And for obvious reasons, I'll tell you now, is that night we had Christopher Cronus, Jeff Fennick, Graham Burke, who was the managing director of Village Roadshow, Kerry Packer and James Packer sitting ringside. And obviously I knew who Christopher Cronus was. He was a friend of mine. I was fighting on his show. And obviously Jeff Fennick through boxing. I had no idea who Graham Burke, I knew who Kerry Packer was. Anyway, I remember fighting that night. It was sort of my last bare knuckle fight here in Australia.
And it was a pro fight? It
was a pro fight, yeah. Before I made my transition to going overseas and fighting for a world title. And I never forget, I caught Bob Crawford in the first round, but caught him heavily with a heavy knee to the head and knocked him out cold. And where his head fell on the canvas was right in front of where Kerry was, Kerry Packer. And Graham Burke, who's my manager still today, never forget, he turned around to Graham Burke and he says, what the fuck did I just see? He goes, who the fuck is that guy? And Graham goes, I have no idea. All we know is Sam Greco is his name. So they asked Christopher Cronus, and Christopher Cronus goes, come on, I'll introduce you to him when he goes back. So I remember winning that fight, and I was on top of the world, and I walked back in the change room, and we were celebrating with my team. And in through the door come Christopher Cronus with Jeff Fennick and Kerry Packer, James Packer and Graham. Yeah, they walked in. And mind you, amongst all this celebration, here I am. I shook hands with them, but I don't think I realised who I was really actually shaking hands with. And they came, they said, we shook hands.
How old were you?
I was back in back in the early 90s. What am I now? I think I was early 30s.
Okay.
Early 30s. And anyway, it was quite interesting. They walked out, they left. As I said to you, I don't think I realised who I shook hands with at the time until the dust settled. And it was about 3 days later that I got a call from Graham Burke's personal assistant over at Village Roadshow requesting a dinner, you know, to celebrate my recent victory. And I'm thinking to myself, what does this Graham Burke want? Who the fuck? You know, I had no idea. And until I accepted the invitation and we went out to the Botanical. and over at Domain Road there. And I remember sitting at dinner. It was just him and his wife and me and my wife. There was flowers on the table and everything else, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is all great. This is unlike me, but, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is beautiful. My world feels like it's changing. And as we were there, the girls were discussing something, and Graham was talking to me, and one of the questions he asked, he says to me, Sam, what do you want to do with yourself, in the years to come? And I said, Graham, the truth of the matter is I want to be the best at what I do whenever I do it. I said, I feel a bit hard stretched at the moment because I'm trying to work and fight at the same time. That's why I need to pick up and I need to go. But I said, I need to earn, obviously, money in order for me to do that. And he says, well, on the basis of that, he says, what sort of money do you need, son? And I said, well, what are you talking about, Graham? I said, I wasn't sure. I knew exactly where it was coming from, but I played dumb. And he says, well, what does Sam Greco need financially in order for him to train full time and be the best at what he does? And here I am sitting in front of a guy who's definitely doesn't need me, especially financially doesn't need me. Being one of the most richest guys in Australia at the time, running one of the biggest companies in the world. I'm thinking, what does this guy want with me? And, he kept probing me with these questions and what I need, what I don't need. And I said, Graham, I don't really know. I'll never forget, this is a man, I call him a gentleman, I call him my father, because we're still together today. There was a menu on the table, and he's grabbed the menu and ripped a sheet off the menu, flipped it back to front, and he's written a figure on there. And he says, yearly, would this help you? And pushed it forward. I looked at the figure, I nearly fell off my fucking chair. And being the wog that I am, and, the Sam Greco that I am, hard-headed, I looked at the figure. As much as I was excited about it, I pushed it back. And I said to him, Graham, thank you, but no thanks. I said, I've got this. And he goes, I don't think you understand. No, I said, I do. I said, what you're doing is you're offering me money. He says, yeah. He says, I'm offering you money. He says, but I don't think you actually appreciate what I'm about to do. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And what he explained to me there and then, he says, son, I don't need your money. He says, I've just actually like what I see in front of me right now. I know there's a kid that I'm looking at who will move heaven and earth to be the greatest in the world at his sport. He says, I'm giving you the financial opportunity. I'm giving you the finances to get on with your life and make something for yourself. I don't want anything in return. And I kept thinking there was a catch to it.
Of course.
And the more and more he spoke to me, I remember reaching over, grabbing that piece of paper, and I grabbed it, I folded it. I never forget to put it in my hands like this. I go, thank you very much, Graham. He says, you'll realise what I'm about in the months and years to come. And sure enough, a man who looked after all my contractual obligations, a man who constantly was the bad guy in negotiations. And he always used to say to me, you stay out of the negotiations, let me be the bad guy. Let them deal with me. They'll need me. We won't need them. Because of his television link-ups and everything else, the promotions would need. And sure enough, he showed me the way. But never, ever, was he there with his hand out, ever.
I know, look, bit of background. I know he's always been in your corner and been your great mentor, and like you've said before, like a dad, but I never knew about that first meeting.
Yeah, the first meeting was amazing. It was just, I got back in the car and I said to my wife...
Because you've never been given anything at this point.
Never, ever, never. And I was sort of brought up in the way you've got to earn your own and push through. But the truth of the matter is, without his help, initially financial help, which is what got me to go overseas, and I still needed a little bit more money, which I borrowed from other friends for me to leave. And I remember my parents saying...
Where did you go?
I went to Japan.
That was your first overseas?
I went to Japan, yeah.
Is that where the K1 started?
That's where the K1 started, but I was going over there as a living student, what they call an uchidesha, which is a living student. You live there for 12 months. You stay in their dormitories. Now, there was nothing nice about their dormitories. It was a 20-man dormitory. 2 showers, putrid, absolutely putrid. 2 toilets, which weren't even Western toilets, they were Japanese-style toilets, putrid. you know, you had one washing machine, one dryer amongst 20 people, and we all lived there and we all shared them. I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. Honest to God, coming from a household where my mum washed my clothes, there was home cooked meal every night. It could be breakfast. I'd say, Mum, I want something to eat. She'd make it for me. To fending for myself, training hard, being battered from day to day, you know, and to earn money while I was over there. I used to teach occasionally, you know, and sometimes teach them English. That's how I went for the first 12 months. But it was at the...
And it was a fight dormitory?
It was a fight dormitory
camp,
where guys, we all got together and trained. And there was a world tournament was coming up at the end of that 12 months. And that's what I was over there for. And I competed in the 64-man eliminator event, and it was just 64 down to 32, down to 16, down to 8, down to 4, down to 2. So you end up having 6 fights in a day. And I won it.
Won the whole thing?
Yeah.
Last man standing.
Last man standing. So in 1994, I won the world tournament over there. And I get goosebumps now because I remember the promoter coming in my dormitory, knocking on my door 2 days later. He says, you pack your stuff. He says, we're out of here. I said, what do you mean? Put me in a hotel.
Wow.
And I never ever looked back. Went from a hotel to my own apartment. And then all of a sudden, they found a gem amongst their bare knuckle karate guys. Now he wanted to convert me to kickboxing. It was a smart move by him anyway. Yeah. And he believed that good karate disciplined guys could make great kickboxers. So he wanted the good karate guys to take on the kickboxers, the best kickboxers around the world. Excuse me, my throat's going. But I remember him saying to me, would you like to do some kickboxing fights? And I'm thinking, I was on top of the world at the moment. I was thinking, yeah, I'd love to do anything. You know, I really didn't think about it, but I said, yeah, put my foot in it. And I got 3 months of training, and they put me against, then I didn't know, but they put me against the Japanese world champion, Masaki Satake, who not only was a world champion, had his own TV show, was a comedian too, had his own dolls, had his own book, had fucking everything. And I'll never forget, when I found that out, I go, what the hell? I said, that's my debut. You know? I said, that's my kickboxing debut. I said, that's crazy. I said, but you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I've got nothing to lose. Let's go. So my first kickboxing fight was against the world champion. Here I am, as raw as fuck. And I had
Sam from Brunswick.
Yeah,
in Japan.
I brought
Stadium.
Stadium, yeah. I brought Dana Goodson over.
Yeah.
And I went with the motto, nothing to lose, everything to gain here. Right? I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at this kid. And sure enough, I did. I hit him with every pot and pan you could think of, and ended up breaking his orbital and knocking him out. Really? And the whole stadium, I wish I had this footage to show you right now, but the whole stadium just went silent. People there like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, there was crowd, it was tears coming down their eyes. Then what the hell's just happened? The promoter, I believe, was trying to set me up on that, but it backfired.
Yeah, massively.
Massively. But what that did, so I've come off a world title, just winning it, to my pro debut in kickboxing, no amateur fights, just straight into the pro section, into the biggest league in the world, K1. And I've just taken out their world champion. And it's like, fuck, we've got a gem here, you know? So they quickly took me back out and they started talking to me about negotiations and new contracts and so on. My life started to change. You know, now things were being paid for. I was being looked after. I had my own security and started to make a great name for yourself. And it was good. And it transpired to my next fight. And he says, we've got a great fight for you. And I said, who's my next fight? And they said, well, we've got a guy by the name of Peter Ertz. I go, who's Peter Ertz at the time? Peter Ertz was the Dutch, who now is the 4-time K1 champion. And we want you to fight him. I said, my second fight. He's one of the reigning champions. They said, yeah, he'll do well. You know, you're strong, you're disciplined, you're this, you're that. The Japanese have a way with their words. And I'll never forget, I prepared for that fight and I fought Peter Ertz. He dropped me with body shots, I think 2 or 3 times, and I kept getting back up fighting on. And that's what made me really popular that night. is that I was able to weather the storm, get dropped, get back up, and really show that true warrior karate spirit.
The Japanese love that.
They loved it. It actually made me more popular than that first fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then the fight went the distance. Peter obviously won. And he got on the mic at the end and they asked him to comment about the fight. He goes, fuck, I've never fought anyone, right, who can hit so hard and just relentless with very little experience. I'd hate to see this guy in years to come. And sure enough, that sort of opened up my world. Opened my world of kickboxing.
Did that light a fire under you just with self-belief and go, hang on, maybe I'm going to be really fucking good at this?
Yeah. And honest to God, it opened up the world in very huge magnitude and just exposed me to a lot of great things. And I knew that now it was time for me to get down and boogie and start really sharpening up on different things and so on, and getting other trainers in, other people's expertise. And I started to really understand what professionalism was all about, that you've got to break things down, that you need your rest days, that you need your therapy, and you need this, you need that. There's so many facets that people, we spoke about it before, but there's so many facets that people on the outside forget to talk about that's actually involved. And I started to realise what was involved. And financially, you can't do that and work. You can't work and do this professional. It just doesn't work. You've got to be in it full time, and you've got to be able to earn money through the fight game, but you've got to be able to earn money through sponsorships.
Yeah.
And make money while you sleep, because that's the only way you're going to get through. So it taught me just a hell of a lot, you know?
Yeah. So go back a step. I sort of become aware of you. Obviously, I opened up Doherty's in Brunswick in 1994 at the little shed around the corner in Union Street, and everyone was talking about Sam Greco, because that was when you'd first gone to Japan. And one of our bodybuilding sponsors at the time was Black and Blue.
Yeah.
And they're like, you must know Sam. I'm like, I know who he is. And we kind of, our paths started to cross. I think they bring you along to the shows when you're in Australia. I'm like, this guy's a fucking rock star. Like, that was kind of where your height really started.
Yeah.
And then we're hearing about you in Japan. They've got Sam Greco dolls, and you're on TV over there. I mean,
it's crazy.
But don't realise how big you were in Japan.
No, Japan.
So, what other big fights did you go on to have there?
Oh my God, I fought all the best fighters in the world at the time through the K1. I went on to fight for a WAKO world title, and I'm three-time WAKO world title.
Three-time?
Yeah, three-time. Probably one of the biggest and most memorable fights over there was my initial WAKO world title.
And who was that against?
It was against Mike Bernardo, South African world champion. Big puncher, Mike. We've late Mike now. We lost him years ago. But that was probably the biggest test of my life. Before the fight, the test began. I was back in Australia. I wasn't overseas training at the time. I came back to Australia purposely to get away from Japan. The fan base can get a bit, you know, can get you a bit down or a bit up, whichever way you want to call it. So I decided to get out of there, get out of my comfort zone, because I was in my fucking comfort zone there at the time. So I thought, nah, it's a world title fight. I need to go back to scratch. I need to go back to my old stomping ground. I need to, you know, reintroduce some of the coaches and start doing things properly. That's exactly what I did. I came back to Australia, and it was good. I was able to, you know, train and spend time with family, which I didn't see him much when I was away. And I had one of the biggest and best lead-ups to that fight ever. And we're fighting in Fukuoka, Japan. And 2 weeks before the event, I was in the prime and the element of my career. I was fit, mentally strong, ready to go. I'd beaten Mike Bernardo 100 times over before I'd stepped in. And 2 weeks before the fight, I get this call from my mum, and she says, I need to see you quickly, you need to come home. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, your dad. I said, well, what's wrong? And she says, he's been admitted to hospital. Fuck. What's wrong? She goes, his heart. Fuck, at that time, you know, all my world title ambitions and everything else just went straight out the fucking door. I didn't even think about it. You know, I thought family first. My dad's always taught me family first. And I remember going to the hospital, and I met my sisters there, and doctors have given us a rundown of what's happening, and they said, your dad's going to need urgent surgery, he's going to need a quintuple bypass, 5 bypasses. What the hell? He's got severe blockages. We've managed to get him. So I remember going to see Dad 2 days before his operation, and I've walked in and my dad's so stubborn-headed, man. And I wonder where I get it from.
Yeah, you wonder that?
Yeah, and it's just a hard nut. Yeah, hard nut. He's that type of guy that if he sliced, he's a motor mechanic, if he sliced himself and cut his finger and while he's working, he'd get a rag, oily, greasy, doesn't care, put it over it and continue work till he finished. That was him, you know. And I remember going in, I said, Dad, is everything okay? And he goes, oh, look, I guess I'll be fine. He was just playing it off. And he says, how's your training going? I said, it's not. I said, what do you mean? Because he knew I was getting ready for a world title. I said, it's not. I said, you come first, family first. You've always told me that. And he goes, yeah, I have. He says, but your world title, come on, I know it's a couple of weeks' time. He was talking to me normally as if he was fine. And I said to him, Dad, don't worry about that. Let's worry about you. Let's get you. I said, you nervous about the thing? He goes, I'm in their hands, man. What do you want me to do? He says, it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He goes, all I know is I've tried my best. Yeah? He goes, it's unfortunate. He goes, that's what the man upstairs wants me to do now. I've got to do. He goes, but I'll be fine. He goes, I want you to go back to training. I said, no, I'm not doing it. And I remember seeing him on the day of the operation, and he went in. And after the operation, we went to see him probably about 5 hours after. He looked like fucking death warmed up. Body was swollen. They'd cut him open straight through the centre, up the arm, through the leg. And it's a major operation. Probably the next closest one to brain surgery, to be quite honest. And I remember when he came to, he was trying to pull out all the tubes out of his neck and that, and they've stopped him from doing it. And my dad's not a religious man at all, you know. He believed in God, but never really, he wouldn't go to church on a weekly basis. And I remember when he first came to, and they've pulled the tubes out slowly, and he finally started taking his first breath. The first thing he said, I remember being by his head, he says, thank God. Thank you, God, right? And eventually we started talking. And I call him the fucker because I lost him 4 years ago, but the toughness of him to, after an operation like that, to turn around and say to me after, are you back at training? I'm thinking, mate, you just went through one of the biggest operations of your life, you know? You're talking as if fucking nothing's happened. Yeah, and this is hours and hours later, but just showed me the toughness of this man, you know, and he was so resilient, but he wouldn't want to show weakness in front of me. That's one of the things, and I remember growing up, he'd never show weakness in front of me. He taught me to be tough, taught me to be strong. If you hit the ground, you can see daylight, you can get back up. You know, that was his motto. And he kept pushing me. I'll never forget the days after I went to see him until he finally got out, and he said to me, you've got to do me a favour, which is about 4 days later. He said, you've got to do me a favour, you've got to get in a plane, and I want you to go. I said, Dad, that's your wish? And he goes, yeah. And I remember talking to Paul Fifield, and Paul Fifield goes, mate, we said family first. I said, Paul, he wants us to go. He goes, fine, let's do it. So I remember seeing him, said my farewells to him, and I remember going up to Japan. It was we had about a week to go before the fight. It was fight week. Everything was great. I knew I was fit and everything else. Just obviously with my dad in my mind at the time, and you know, my mum sort of looking after him. I was kept in contact via phone, and I remember leading into the world title fight, biggest fight of my life, but I just realised that I had the biggest fight of my life just before that. Right. This fight wasn't going to be as big as the one I just faced, you know, emotionally with my family. And I remember getting in, my instructions were quite, you know, I'm going to cut to the chase here, but my instructions were quite simple. Stick and move on this guy. He's bigger than you, stick and move. You can hit him from any angle. Don't stand in front of him. Don't mix any more than 3 or 4 punches with him because he can bang hard. No worries, Paul. I got it. Let's go. So we went out the first round, started plotting along, kicking, punching, and it was a stage where I just fucking got in this comfort zone of throwing 2, 3. I went to throw that 4th punch. Bang, I got hit with a fucking right hand. Just out. Just dropped me. And I'm on my back, and I never forget, all I hear is I looked up through the corner of my eye, I could see the silhouette of a guy going, that's what it fucking sounds like. Yeah, it sounds like everyone's submerged under fucking water.
Like a Rocky movie.
Yeah, it's like everyone's submerged under water. It's so fucking slow, right? And I'm trying to peel my head off the ground, thinking, fuck. In my head, I'm going, you got to get up. And within, I think it was about the 5th count, I heard this piercing voice coming from the corner. Get up. It was Paul Fifield. I managed to get, on the count of 7, I managed to get to one knee, and I stood up at 8, right? And I was like a flag on a windy day, and the referee looks at me and goes, "Are you okay?" Now, I don't know any fighter to this very fucking day.
Says no.
Either says no, yeah. And honestly, I was like a flag on a fucking windy day, right? Going everywhere. He goes, "You okay?" I go, "Yeah, I'm all right." And all of a sudden,
Great.
he goes, "Great, fight." And this fucking rhinoceros just comes straight at me. He fucking, no disrespect to Mike Bernardo, but he was a brute, comes straight at me. And I remember I threw punches, my legs were fucking gone. And I slipped over, fell again, got back up. As we went to tangle again, the bell went. And he went back off to his corner, and I was supposed to go back to my corner. I went to a fucking neutral corner. And the referee goes, "Hey," I was fucked. I weathered the storm. Paul's talking to me in the corner, and he reckons for the first 20 seconds I was like a blank canvas until I finally just twitched, and he goes to me, "Hey, I told you not to mix any more than fucking 4 punches with this guy. That's it, blah, blah, blah," whatever it was. He goes, "These are your instructions." He goes, "Carry out the second round, weather the storm. Just get on your toes, get that feeling back in your legs. You know what to do." So I did that in the second round, come back. By the third round, he goes, "Right, these are your instructions. We're going to war. This is it." And as I don't know if you've ever been to kickboxing or boxing, you hear seconds out.
Yep.
You ever hear that?
Yes.
Paul's giving my instructions, and you hear over the PA, "Seconds out." Anyway, I started to walk forward. As I was walking forward past Paul, he goes, "Let's do it," right? He grabbed me by the arm. He's dragged me back. I go, "What's up?" He goes,
It's all right.
he says, "Your dad's depending on this." I could always hit home this.
It's part of the story, man. How'd you handle that?
It's fucking tough, but
Seconds out, your
Seconds
dad's
out.
depending on it. You've got a rhinoceros ready to
honestly, it's
kick the fuck out of you.
Yeah, it was like this hot flush went straight through my body. It was like a rage, and I just fucking tore him another arsehole. For 3 rounds, just busted him up everywhere, hit him from everywhere. And I knew at the end of the 5th round, which was the end of the fight, I knew I'd won it convincingly, even after that knockdown. So it's a tough one, but it was the most memorable one.
Stuck with you, isn't it?
Oh, fuck yeah.
And you won?
Oh, yeah, I fucking won
Yeah,
the world
hands
title.
in the air.
Hands in the air. I knew I'd won it.
It must have been relief, you know, just knowing what Paul had said, knowing
Yeah.
your dad made you go and do it.
It was...
Because
yeah.
he would have.
Oh, mate, look, at the end of the day...
I mean, family first, that is family first. This is your dad go, "Hey,
Fuck.
I'm good, now go and fucking fight." That's what
exactly,
you're here to do.
that's exactly what he wanted. That's exactly, I know what my dad wanted, and I did it. It was tough. It was hard. I went through all the emotions in the world.
Yeah.
In the lead up, during it, after it.
Yeah, and you've probably like, trapped them in there all this time. You know, you tell your story now and you realise, shit, that was one of those pivotal moments that...
I can't tell. I actually... I've told that story a few times, but I can never get past that,
Really?
ever. No, it's just I don't know what it is.
Does it always make you emotional when you tell that story?
It just puts me back in the ring.
Yeah.
It fucking puts me back in there. It's fucking tough. It really is. It's I talk about it. Yes, it's emotional, but you're right. It's partly bottled up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And,
like, we come from a generation where our dads bottled everything up.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we...
And my dad did a lot too. That's exactly right.
And then I wonder why I bottle stuff up, and then you break out in some kind of rage or you explode. And, you know, one of the reasons I've built this office and doing this series is to get us to tell our stories and have a game of pool.
Yeah.
Just to meet in here. I think sometimes, Sam, as men, we don't need to discuss our problems or get all that stuff. We just need to talk and just have some
100%.
clear time where you're not thinking about your responsibilities, not thinking about putting food on the table, not thinking about whatever you're going through with work or lockdowns or whatever we may be struggling with, just to have some time with each other, you know. Now, I know your mates have been a great support network. I'm a little John going over to the Japan fights. Little fruitier.
Yeah,
little savage.
Hey, a lot of the boys come over, which is, the great support base. I mean, fancy having friends that can travel and support you through the thick and thin.
Well, I didn't know you that well, but always my mates were going to see Greco. If I remember Tony T from Max's, because Max's were my sponsor, and I hosted Muscle TV, and I think you were on it. And, they were your sponsor, and all those guys were going to see you in Japan or in Vegas or wherever it was. Now, tell us about some of the other Japan fights. Some that don't make you so emotional, make you victorious and thrilling, and because you're a fucking savage, man. I mean, God. And Brownie, we're going to find some. I'll get Sam to send us some.
Yeah, I'll send some
clips,
footage,
and we'll drop some of these into this, and you can see this guy. And how he was frightening, still is. But tell us about some of the...
Look, for a heavyweight, I'll tell you my forte as a heavyweight, besides my mental strength. One of the things that I did that most other heavyweights didn't do, and that's what catapulted me, was the fact that if I caught you with one shot, there was another 30 coming straight after. I just really, really bad hunger. If I caught you with one on you, I hurt you, you could poker face whatever you want.
You'd smell
I'd
it,
sense it. I'd smell it. I'd smell blood. Once I smelled blood or tasted blood, that was it. That
I've
was
watched
it.
a lot of your clips, man.
Yeah, I just unload. I didn't care how big or small. And I fought guys that are, 6'8", 6'10". I fought a big Russian nearly at 7 foot. Just ridiculous. I had to literally get a step ladder to hit him, but I did. Look, a lot of the fights that I had, especially in Japan, always great fights against great opponents, and there was a lesson to be learned nearly with every single one of them.
Who was the toughest one that you beat?
Oh God,
toughest.
Ernesto Hoost.
You know what?
Four-time K1 champion.
Yeah.
Ernesto Hoost. I studied that guy inside out. I literally knew every single movement that guy did.
Where was he from?
He's from Holland. He's from Holland, in Amsterdam. So, and they called him Mr. Perfect, but fucking for a reason, because he was perfect and his timing was impeccable. He wasn't the biggest heavyweight. He's still 6'3", 6'4", but wasn't the biggest in terms of weight. One of the smaller weight guys, but just had the technique. Fucking his timing was impeccable. He'd be able to pinpoint stuff that the average wouldn't be able to do it.
Hard to hit?
Yeah, hard to hit. But I worked him out so well that when I did fight him, I tore him to pieces and destroyed him. And he didn't come out of the corner.
He wouldn't come out?
No, he wouldn't come out. At the end, he was hurt.
What round?
He was hurt. It was the end of the second. Yeah, on one of them. So I fought him twice. First time we went the distance. First time I fought him, I split my shin open so that he won it. And the second time I beat him. So, yeah.
He wouldn't come out of the corner?
No, it was hurt.
This is the toughest four-time world champion.
But you know, it's funny. I was with him in Bulgaria 2 weeks ago, and we speak about it. And he says one of the hardest guys that I ever fought in my career. He goes, was you? He goes, your pressure was relentless. He goes, you wouldn't let me breathe.
Yeah.
He goes, whereas others
did.
did.
I remember watching you, and you'd do that. You'd smell blood, and you just wouldn't stop.
I just wanted to go.
And where did you hurt him? Was it his body, his head? Or just top to bottom?
Top to bottom, but I think I ripped his soul out at the time. I just hit him from everywhere. He was
for him not to come out.
Yeah, for him not to come out. Exactly right. You're 100% right. You know.
And this is in Japan.
This is in Japan.
How many people would be at those stadiums?
So, for example, that fight there, even with Mike Bernardo or some of the Tokyo Dome fights, was 70,000 people.
Yes, I thought.
It's amazing. Yeah, football crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
huge.
Football crowds. On average, you get about 25 to 30.
Yeah.
You know, great crowd. I mean, and the things with the Japanese fans were quite interesting. That either were vocal if they loved you, or if they didn't like you, they wouldn't say a word. They wouldn't boo you.
Too polite?
Yeah, they wouldn't boo you.
Too polite to boo?
Yeah, they wouldn't fucking boo you. It was interesting.
Sorry.
It was quite interesting. They wouldn't boo you. But it's an amazing, for me it was an amazing country to grow and develop my career and to see what professionalism was all about. K1 today, if social media was around during our days, forget it. Yeah, forget it.
I always say that to the 90s bodybuilders.
Yeah,
you know,
well, there you
Chris and
go.
Ronnie and Leveroni and those guys who were rock stars without social media. Imagine they're around now. Damn.
Yeah.
But so how many years did you fight in Japan?
I was there from 90, well, first time was 88, all the way to 2005,
So
2006.
10, 12 years.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
straight out, yeah.
And USA, you fought, I remember going to Vegas.
No, I was in Vegas. I didn't fight in Vegas. I took Bob Sapp to...
Oh, you took Bob Sapp to Vegas.
Yeah, when I was wrestling at the time.
So that was your best win in
Yeah.
Ernesto Horse. What was your worst loss, or the time you got caught, knocked out, or just shown up when you weren't expecting it?
Do you know, and I'm not afraid to say this because I do, we mentioned it before about training and the attitudes of training, the discipline, everything else. And when you get that comfort zone, one of the fights, and I'm not going to even bother mentioning it, but one of the fights that I had, I just felt that I was fine. I don't need to do all the stuff that I need to do to get ready for this. I'll be fine. Sure enough, I was in the raw end of it, wasn't I?
Yep.
And you know, as I'm walking out of the ring, I'm going, oh fuck, perhaps next time, you know, I'll do a bit better here. But no, fucking, you know, I got beaten by a better guy. No, you didn't get beaten by a fucking better guy. You beat yourself, you dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why preparation is so important. Your lead up says a lot about your result. Yeah, what you do.
It's everything.
You know, take shortcut. You might get away with it today. You might get away with it tomorrow. But that's about it. When it hits you, it's going to come down like a ton of bricks.
Probably in the first round.
It's exactly
Just
right.
while you're strutting
It's
around.
exactly right. So to me, it was a rude awakening. And I thought, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to train. Whether I know the guy is not as competent as my last guy. Don't give a fuck. Don't care. I'll train as if I'm fighting for a world title every time. Don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I'll cover all bases. Because in our game, shit can go down at any time. You can have the best preparation in the world. You blink your eye for a split second. Our game's about milliseconds. Guy puts you to sleep.
And you can get hurt. Like,
Oh.
I mean, thank God you come out of it, you know, fully intact and sharp, and you know, where others maybe haven't. Like, I've watched your career and just seen you as just this ultimate warrior. You know that whatever you've applied yourself to, you've just been an absolute savage. And I see that now with the guys you train for fights. You know, you've just got back from the UFC with Jimmy Crute,
yeah.
who's a Bendigo boy from
Yeah,
my little
Bendigo,
hometown.
one of the locals, yeah.
And he's been an interesting one. I know you had to be really hard on him at times to get his head right, not the body, because he's a tank. He's an absolute machine. But I remember you saying, it just...
Yeah, look, Jimmy come to me at a very young age, at 18, and I spent 8 years with him. And towards the last, probably year and a half of that 8 years, I started to see this decline. You know, we made the UFC. Look, our ambition was to make the UFC. We went on Dana White's Contender Series. We knocked the guy out. We got a contract. Now this is the start. It wasn't, we've made the top stage, that's it. This is the start. This is where the shit gets really, really
It's like I said
tough.
before, now you turn pro.
Now you turn pro. So we developed different training strategies and methods and so on. And the thing that I always revert back to is discipline. You've got to be disciplined. Do things when you don't fucking want to do them. You have to get up and do them. Simple, whether you like it or not. And Jimmy was great for a hell of a long time. But towards that last year and a half, I started seeing this, I don't know. I've always been, the way I've been brought up is my coach knows what I need to do. I'm going to leave it in his hands, yeah? If I've got to start telling my coach what to do, I shouldn't have that coach.
I remember when this came about and seeing that disconnect.
It was a disconnect, and I started to see it, but also his attitude and just the way we spoke and our communication started breaking down, and I started sensing this, and I pulled him in a few times, and he was like, no, I've got it. I said, Jimmy, for whatever it's worth, son, I'm here, mate. But I can't help someone who can't help themselves. Listen to what I'm saying. I'll move heaven and earth. Let's fucking do it. Anyway, it just got to a stage where even one stage, I said to him, mate, get your bag. I said, get out, you know. And eventually I pulled him back in, but I tried to break it down. And Jimmy's comes from a beautiful family. He's a really good kid. But he had his own demons, like we all have.
Yeah.
But it's how you manage those demons. You fuel them, they get the better of you, you're fucked. Unfortunately, he fueled his own demons. They got the better of him. He had shit friends around him at the time, which fueled it, which my friends would have fucking given me a clip behind the ear, kicked me in the ass and said, hey, pull your fucking head in, you're a professional.
You need unreasonable friends.
Exactly right. Exactly. Sometimes you would be cruel to be kind. So, I told him once, twice, the third time I just said, mate, you probably need me to walk in order for you to appreciate our value. And it was like I've given him an exit. Yeah. So when I did make the choice, I said, mate, you're on your own now, mate. I can't do this anymore.
Is that when he got hurt?
Yeah.
He got properly hurt.
He got properly hurt emotionally.
His facial injuries were.
He got properly hurt.
Was it the cheekbones,
his
nose, everything?
Yeah. Look,
whole front half of his head, basically.
Look, overall, he got busted up, and I could just see this decline, and and I always wished the best for the kid. I would have preferred him to retire if that was the case, but I knew this kid had something fucking special. That was the thing.
Yeah,
I knew he had something special.
He had zero fear.
Yeah.
I remember when you introduced and we sponsored him, you bring him into the gym. I'm like, this kid's fucking fearless.
He is. He still is. Anyway, so it was funny. I decided to walk away. It was the hardest choice of my life. I didn't tell him that, but my biggest fear was, I'm hoping he realises. And I'm hoping he engages someone better than me, right? I really do. If he's going to do something else, because he goes, I'll go elsewhere, I'll go whatever. So he already had some plans, which he did. And I just said, I just hope he goes to someone who knows me. I sort of didn't keep contact with him. Through others, I was finding out how it was going. And I swore never to watch any of his fights. Yeah. Which I lie. I watched fucking all of them. Yeah. And it broke my heart. The three that he had. And then he lost. It just broke my heart. And it was up last year, early last year, that we had a chat and he decided to come back.
Full circle, huh?
And I just said to him, on one proviso, you become dedicated to yourself. He found God, believe it or not, which is unlike Jimmy, but I'm so grateful that he had found something, and to each to their own. He found God, Christian, and it's just turned his whole life around. Jimmy was on the dark edge for a long time.
I know.
Yeah, and he talks about it, and he talks about the dark side, and talks about the demons. He talks about all that. Talks about it openly now. And
we'll have to get him on. We'll have to get
he's an amazing individual.
I've always liked him.
He's an amazing individual.
Now, go forward one. So he comes back, starts working with you.
Yep.
You've just got back from America with him.
Yep.
How did it go?
We just got back from New Orleans, and he's just had a first round win. Submission nearly broke the guy's arm.
I saw it.
So the two fights that he's come back with me, we had one draw, which was his first one back after that long break, and the one we had 2 weeks ago was a first round win. Now we're booked for September.
And that's on the big UFC card?
All big UFC cards. So we're booked already. So he'll have 3 or 4 by the end of this year. And that's the Jimmy that we want.
Good, man.
The man that's active.
Isn't that a good story?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you've got to get ahead of yourself to realise what you had,
Well, sometimes you've got to hit rock bottom to appreciate what you've got.
Yeah.
Or what you did have.
Yeah. I mean, and you see it so much with fighters, because they get into a comfort zone. They get comfortable, they get hurt, like Tyson. I mean, the greatest fighter, you and I talked to him for years, like when he was at his best, this guy's never going to get it. But then he stopped training, stopped sweating, surrounded himself with fuckwits, and got knocked out by a lesser fighter when he could have. God.
But you look at this, isn't it interesting? I suppose it's all sports. I think that one of the hardest thing, the fighters or sports people in general, the hardest thing for them to comprehend and accept is when their life and their career's on that high, they got mega people around them. They got people fucking everywhere. They couldn't even drop their hanky on the ground without someone picking it up. And then all of a sudden they start having losses and they start going downhill and their career just spirals into fucking down. How many of those other people are around? you probably find one or two.
Yeah. Oh, mate, we've both seen it. And we've seen it too when people at the end of their careers with AFL footballers, with bodybuilders,
great
mutual
example.
friends, you know, they start going to nightclubs. Again, and I said this with Colo the other day in the podcast, you know, that there's no care for them on the way out because they've been on big money, been surrounded by yes people who do anything for them. They're fair weather friends, right? And then when it's all over, they start going to nightclubs and getting the VIP booths and people giving them free drinks and free drugs and everything's on a plate. And they don't know how to cope in the real fucking world because one, they've had it easy, two, they've had everything paid for, and three, the discipline that they've had, this daily grind of having a purpose is gone. You know, and you see it so many times with athletes on the way down. I think it's, you know, something like with AFL football, they've got to have a program for them on the exit because, you know, their careers can be 10 years long, never had a job.
You're so right.
And they get spat out the other end. Some of them are going to do media, some are going to go into coaching, but the vast majority is going to land on their ass. And all those people you just mentioned, all those arse lickers, and people picking up the handkerchief and buying them drinks, they're gone.
But they're only there for the taking.
That's
all
what I mean.
they are.
But then
while you're feeding, they're there.
Then they've got no one. Because they probably burn their real friends on the way because they don't want to hear the unreasonable truth. Yeah. Someone say you're getting ahead of yourself or you shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't doing that. And it's a funny thing with sports people, but some manage to extend it in different ways. So post kickboxing, yeah, you had enough of that, you're world champion, there's nothing left for you to achieve. And you started training others. He's got into your wrestling, all that, and we'll talk about that. But one of the guests you brought here at the gym, one of the most memorable periods of our friendship, was Big Bob Sapp, who was fighting in Japan. Bob Sapp was an actor at the time. He'd just been in The Longest Yard with Adam Sadler. And you brought him in the gym. And I remember you pulled me aside and said, Tony, he's not quite right.
He's NQR, don't worry about that.
He's going to be here for a few months, but there's, you know, he's got voices in his head or something. He said to me, well, seems nice to me. Until I seen him lose it in the ring one day when you were sparring with him. And lose it, he's like Milton the Monster. He's gone apeshit. He's trying to tear my ring to pieces. He's fucking kicking the turnbuckles, yelling at you. And you're trying to like, calm, happy place.
He's actually, I'm going to be honest, he's a very intellectual individual. He's super, super smart.
Yeah, till he laces up his gloves.
Till he laces up his gloves.
Fucking
He's
hell.
shit scared of fighting, hates fucking fighting.
I remember.
Hates it. But there's that button you press, then you can't turn it off. You won't find an off switch.
When you take him to fights and you explained it to him, you said, look, he locks himself in his room, like he won't come out.
Oh, he won't come out.
He doesn't want to fight anyone.
Shit scared.
You've got to like trick him into the ring almost.
You do.
Right? Like, how is it working with something like that? Because we talk about these people who are centered, you know, like you come out like a savage and you're ready to kill everyone. And he's sappy, doesn't even want to fight, but he's the biggest man on earth.
6'4", 180 kilos.
I remember he was 180 kilos.
Lean, motherfucker. Are you serious?
I remember he put his shirt off one day and you could see his abs at 180 kilos. In fact, I've got a picture of him standing out the front of the street.
I still remember.
Brownie, I'll drop it in. You've never seen anything like it. He was the biggest fucking human you could imagine. And whatever he was taking, whatever he was doing, it was out of control.
Crazy. Do you know, when I first met him, I met him at WCW, yeah? And then when the company went belly up and WWF at the time bought him, we were out of a job. I was filming anyway. I was doing a movie here, a Scooby-Doo in Australia, the American movie. And he rang me and says, company's gone belly up. What am I going to do? I need money to survive this and that. I said, do you want to take up fighting? He goes, no fucking chance. I said, come on, man. I'll take you to Japan.
So he went from wrestling to fighting?
He went wrestling too. So I'm the one that took him over. And as soon as the Japanese saw him, 180 kilos, 6'4", lean. If this guy can throw kicks and punches, we've got ourselves a superstar. But it wasn't about him throwing the kicks and punches. It was his gift at the gab. He made more money in Japan than he's ever made anywhere.
I remember you told me.
He made more money than all K1 fighters all put together.
Bob Sapp toys and dolls.
Dildos.
Bob Sapp's dildo. I wasn't going to.
Yeah.
He did, didn't he?
It's ridiculous. It's TV shows. They just went above and beyond. But having said that, I think I spoiled the K1 market by bringing him over because then the K1 thought we can get all these big guys come over, but the problem is these big guys couldn't fight. So it became the land of the giants.
Right.
So the class of fighting went down. So it sort of destroyed it a bit. But Bob was a mega superstar.
Mega.
I'm telling you, He couldn't even walk down the street, look through his window without getting swamped.
Yeah. But I remember he was really hard to train because he was so odd.
Oh my
right?
God, you got no idea.
I remember you explaining to me one day, you go, look, to get him to fight, I've got to make him snap. And then when he snaps, I can't control him. And I remember this conundrum. We'd hear it from the front desk. Oh, no. Sap's lost his shit again.
Mate.
And he'd be rampaging.
Fuck, I've seen him. Mind you, I'll just give you a quick story. When wrestling in WCW, we were living in Atlanta, Georgia. We lived across the road from each other. So we'd pick each other up and drop each other off every single day and train. And as you're probably well aware, but in Atlanta, Georgia, racism's pretty prominent. The blacks and the whites and everything else, yeah? And Bob being who he is, he was really aware of what's happening. And he used to get a lot of racism at WCW. And he says it in his book. I'm the only guy that stuck up for it against some of these well-known, I won't even mention their names, well-known WWE wrestlers. And I'm the one that stood up. I said, if you've got a problem with him, you've got a fucking problem with me. And they go, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, let's go. I go, no fucking problem. This ain't going to be wrestling. Yeah. I said, I'll rip your fucking hearts out. That's what I'll do. Anyway, so Bob was very thankful, and I came to his rescue, and he says that in his book. But, you know, we went through a lot of that. We used to travel through countrysides to go and wrestle. He'd be sitting in the back. I'd be driving. We'd stop at a gas station. I said, do you want anything? And he goes, no, I'm not getting out. He goes, no fucking way I'm getting out. I said, why not? He was really petrified about getting out in these old country towns, you know. And I'd come back to the car and I couldn't see him. I'm thinking, where the hell is he? And he'd be lying across the back seat, waiting for me to come back. That's how petrified he was.
It was like a big baby,
He was a fucking big baby, yeah. And we went through this through day and night, mate. We did this. And he was just amazing.
You know, a few months ago, I'd put some post on Instagram and I get this comment, I miss you, brother. And it was Bob Sapp. He followed me back and we've had a few little chats and mentioned you.
Yeah.
And
He spends 6 months of the year in Thailand and then 6 months of the year back in Japan, I think, or America.
Unbelievable. Now, tell us about WCW. How'd that come about? I mean, World Wrestling at the time, World Championship Wrestling was the big one.
Yeah, WCW.
And I remember when you got picked up, I'm like, because I loved that more than all the others. I was a big fan.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I don't know if you remember, when they come out here to perform and you were with the tour, and Bill Goldberg was at my gym, which is now my gym in the city, Doherty Gym, which was Underworld
brought him
Gym.
over there.
And you called me and you go, do you want to come down? And I've got a picture of you on a step mill or a treadmill in the background. And I've got a picture of me and Goldberg. And then Goldberg, in fact,
on the
that
bike.
picture over there.
On the bike, that's right.
That's Goldberg on my Harley out the front of my city gym. And he was gracious enough to come and sit in the bike because I knew he was a fiend for cars and bikes and all that sort of thing. And I love Goldberg. So I'm like, Greco.
He's a good man.
Greco introduced me to Goldberg. I like him even more now.
He's a good man. So with the wrestling, so to make it quick, I mean, basically, I had a really bad shin injury, couldn't compete in kickboxing, had to take 12 months off. K1 didn't like it, but I just said, mate, I need a break. And a mate of mine who had links with Paul Orndorff, the late Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, over in Atlanta, Georgia at WCW, said, do you want to come over and trial for some WCW workouts, trials? And I said, well, what does it entail? I said, I can't kick or anything. He says, nah, it's all this stuff here. It's me and you versus the crowd rather than me versus you, you know. So I went over and I met Bob Sapp. It was about 72 people trialling. We trialled over a couple of days, and by Monday morning, my name was the third name to be called, and Bob was about the sixth or seventh name to be called to make it. So we got contracts, and we never looked back. I had about 50-odd matches.
I remember.
Over there, and I toured with WCW around Australia. Also, while they were on tour, that's why Bill Goldberg was down with me.
It was funny because that was at what's now Marvel Stadium.
Yeah.
And Colo and I talked about it in the last podcast
huge.
because he had a footy match on the next day and had to start late because the ground was so fucked. It was like 50,000 people. It was nuts. Yeah.
But it was really, I tell you what wrestling did, in a nutshell, coming from a sport that it's me versus you, the real deal, to a sport where it's me and you versus the crowd. It's about the baby face and heel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about me getting the crowd. Once you've got that crowd eating out of the palm of your hand, you've got to hold them there. So you've got to keep telling that story. Yeah. You've got to act that story out.
I know.
And so on. So it's quite unique. It's look, the blood, the tables, the chairs, and all that bullshit. It's all real. Don't kid yourself.
Oh, and
some of those
fall, mate, some of those falls.
They're very accurate. For big guys that are 100+ kilos, taking bumps and falls on a daily basis.
And when they're in the cage and fall off the roof and land on their back.
You've got to somewhat respect that. Call it whatever you want, on drugs, not on drugs, whatever it may be. Call it whatever you want. You've got to respect that. And it's a form of entertainment. But that's what it did. It showed me the entertainment aspect of the fight game.
We know that night at Marvel Stadium, which was, I think, Colonial, so whatever it was at the time, that was right before I did the Australian Pro Bodybuilding, and that lit me up to understand what entertainment was. And so I'm not going to do boring bodybuilding anymore. I'm going to do true bodybuilding entertainment. I learned that from that night at the WCW where they were doing indoor fireworks. And the first Australian Pro, which you're at, I did the first indoor fireworks in the world. Yeah. And that came from that night.
Oh, wow. There you
Absolutely.
go.
A lot came from that night,
world.
you know. I ended up buying that gym, right, against all odds when it was run down. And geez, not the underworld guys, the next guy that had it ran it into the ground. We've still got it now.
Well, that was my home.
I know it was.
For many years.
Thank you for inviting me down, man. It was probably the start of a great friendship, really.
Yeah.
From there, you've gone into a lot of things. From the obviously WCW got bought out by WWE and it changed, and Triple H and Vince and all them, who I've got to know through Arnold. I spent a lot of time with Triple H and the team over there. But that got you into a lot of acting and commercials and I remember we did a movie with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, The Condemned.
The Condemned up in Queensland.
Queensland, yeah.
Yeah, and you bought me back a signed picture.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you. And how much fun was it making movies?
Movies are always fun. And obviously the crew that you work with, that's it. If you've got a good crew, man, you have an absolute ball.
And no one trying to kick you either. This helps.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's the only thing that I didn't like about the acting or the doing movies is you're on there for a long time. So, meaning, I said to Freddie Prinze Jr., for argument's sake, on Scooby-Doo, when we were filming Scooby-Doo, I played one of the main villains. I said, Freddie, how do you fucking do this every single day? You know, for 3 months, we're going to do this. He said, Sam, he says, you get paid to wait around. Acting's
it's a
bonus.
downtime, isn't it?
Acting's a bonus. So you might be waiting in your caravan or your trailer for, 7 hours, all makeup done, everything else, and then you go out for half hour, you work, come back in your trailer and you're done for the day. On to the next day. Because everything's all light related and...
I know, from the few things I've done and commercials
do you
and stuff I've done,
yeah.
it's a downtime.
It's the downtime, but you get paid for downtime,
really
or you get paid
money.
to wait around, and acting's a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's I sort of took that on board, but it's fun. You meet some great people. I've met some.
You've had a good ride, man. And what about the fat pizza?
Oh God, those guys.
That's just crazy.
That's just crazy shit. And honestly, I'll be honest. Fat Pizza, Howzo, Swift and Shift.
You've done all those.
I've done all of those, and I've travelled the world with them too. But a lot of that stuff, I mean, even though you've got a script, I have not to this day followed ever a script. Because if you follow the script, then it's not you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And you can get away with it with that,
and I can, then we could get away with it. If you had that on TV today, there's not a chance. It'll get shut down. With the shit that we did on Fat Pizza and the language and,
It was out of control, wasn't it?
Oh, it was fucking crazy. It was crazy, but it was the first of many. But like I said, it's it came out then, but I don't think it'll be out today.
And you did a lot of bit part stuff like the Underbelly series. I
did a lot of the Underbellies. Yeah,
a lot of stuff, huh?
It was very close to home, but yeah. Well, as you're well aware, yeah.
Well, a few of the members that have gone through here that aren't with us anymore, and a lot of the good blokes that we're both very close with that are still around, and obviously both of us been close to Carlton, and we've got some very great mutual friends in that world who've been. Great through both of our careers.
Do you treat them the way they treat you, mate? They treat me well. They treat us well.
You've managed to, as I have, you've always managed just to keep one step away from getting sucked into that world. And there's probably been times where both of us could have gone either way, but family, career, you fighting, me with my promoting, and nice to be on a good side with them. But I've got my own life to live, and kind of glad the way it's turned out. Now, you are. Done all that, and you bought a cafe down near Victoria Market where every crook in the world went to eat, and every footballer and every celebrity, Don Camillo.
Don Camillo's.
Now, tell us a little bit about that, because I come down there more regularly. I think I saw more of you at that cafe than I did at the gyms. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a really good cafe. That cafe there opened up in 1955. One of the oldest cafes ever to open up in Melbourne. Probably the third cafe ever to open up in Melbourne. I had it for 15 years. I think I bought it back in 2006.
Yeah, so you've gone from being this high-flying world champion kickboxer, WWE movie star, to making coffees.
Serving.
And I know, whenever I'd go in there, you'd be on the machine, you'd be at the counter, and it was your personality that brought people in. It really was. People come to have a moment with Sam.
But you and I, you know this. You're no different, Tony. I mean, you're blowing my trumpet here, but you're no different. You're a people's person, and so am I. My business revolves around me. I don't, if I've got to sit there and start making food and everything else, I want to be able to go in there, and I want to be the conversation. When I say I want to be the conversation, Pete, I want to be able to converse with people. Sorry, I want to be able to say, "Hi, how are you going?" Sit with them. Might have a chat 5 minutes with you. Go to the next table, and so on. And I do my rounds, and it was great.
It's like me in the gym.
It's no different.
Do the rounds.
But you know what? People would talk about that. Hey, man, I went to eat at Don Camille. I said, hey, Sammy was there. Mate, we had this great chat, blah, 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 whatever it may be. Or I was there talking to Tony Doherty. Guess who I saw? Jeff Kennett was sitting upstairs, But it was funny. It was an industry. The hospitality industry, especially that business there, was renowned for it. You could have, it was what I used to call white grounds, white flags. So everyone would surrender walking in. Meaning you could have undercover coppers sitting in that corner. You could have bikies sitting on the other side. You could have response groups sitting upstairs.
Yep.
You could have politicians sitting on the other side. Everyone would mind their own business.
Like this joint.
Everyone would mind their own business.
And that's, I think, one thing, common ground we often talked about. I'd just say to everyone, leave your hat at the door.
Yeah.
Because once you come in here, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Be nice. Put your weights away. Mind your business. And we're going to be
And
good.
that's it. And you know what? And it was a really good place. It was a really good place. And obviously COVID is what killed it at the end. Landlord and COVID.
I remember.
So, never mind. It was a great experience. It was good nearly 15 years of my life in there.
But I mean, at that time, I remember we both spoke, and I had the gym shut for the first time in 21 years. I didn't even have keys for this place when COVID
That's
hit.
right, yeah.
You had to close the cafe. And I remember we helped each other a lot through that, both doing media and trying to hang in there and just angle it the best way we could to get through. But you got through. It was the end of an era. It really was. And I miss it, man. Like, I know all the market blokes miss it. Everyone misses it.
That was great. We had everyone coming in, like from news crews to I can't even tell you, man. It's
I know
a lot of VFL and AFL contracts were signed upstairs there.
I know they were.
I can tell you that for a category.
The pictures on the walls for anyone that never went there, it was a who's who of everyone who'd ever.
A lot of great deals were done there.
Yeah.
In the past. So
it was the Switzerland.
Yeah.
This is the Switzerland of the gym world. That was the Switzerland of the cafe world. Didn't matter who you were. As you said, white flag. Everyone goes in. Do anything else outside of here, and they respected you so much. No one fucked up in there.
No, it was good. There was a mutual respect, and that's what I loved about it. Even with a lot of some of the bikes that used to come in, there was a stage where I said no colours.
Same.
There was no arguments.
Same.
The boys were good, and they were so respectful, so respectful. They'd pay above and beyond, never cared. As long as they had a place to eat, sit. They were quiet, never
Place
rowdy.
to be welcome.
Yeah, never rowdy. So, I give respect where respect should be given, and that's fine. What they do in their own private time, I don't really care. It's got nothing to do with me.
Now, you had a bit of a life-changing event twice. Heart attack. Didn't see that coming. You're the fucking fittest, cleanest living bloke I know. And I get word that you're laid up in hospital.
Yeah,
bypass. It's fucking...
It was obviously hereditary. You heard the story with my dad. There's been obviously issues there. I didn't think I'd ever be hit with it. But unfortunately I did back in 2018. Jimmy was fighting for a title on a Friday night. Never forget, it was the main event, and I had pains in my chest all day, and I was just too stubborn-headed to go and see anyone. And I thought, I've got to see this out. He's fighting, I can't leave. And I remember coaching him. I was so dry in the mouth and pains in my chest. And when the fight finished, and I'm cutting the story short, but when the fight finished, I just drove myself. I got one of my students to just drive me straight to the emergency triage. And I was having pains in the chest. My arms were numb. My neck was tingling. And sure enough, I had a 99% blockage in one of my arteries. And they managed to get to it pretty quick and put a stent in. And they said that was fine. I thought, fuck, this is great. And I was breathing normally, and I just felt brand new once that was done. 18 months later, I'm training again, and
I remember you were fit as fuck.
yeah,
you were
I'm
just
training,
like,
I'm training again,
before.
and I'm having this pain. I thought that doesn't feel right. So I got one of the girls that we were training. I said, "Can you do me a favour? Call an ambulance." They called an ambulance. Ambulance come down and said, "Mate, you're having a heart attack." They gave me a code form, and I said, "Mate, fuck the code. Tell me what I'm doing. What's happening?" He goes, "You're having a heart attack." So I went back and straight to the hospital again. Believe it or not, it was meant to be that as soon as I walked in, my cardiologist that operated me the first time was there. when I walked in. He goes, what the hell? I had a reblockage. I had a reblockage of that stent. So my dad had the same issues. When he had stents put in, they didn't work for him. That's why he ended up having a quintuple bypass. They put stents in for me, didn't work for me. So I had a triple bypass.
I remember.
So I joined the family of bypasses, and that was a tough battle. That was a tough battle. And getting back, I was so adamant to come back. You know, a lot of people just fade away after that. You know, I'm not going to do anything. Oh, fuck that. I said to my surgeon, my cardiothoracic surgeon, I said, Marco Larabina, thank God for him, you know, he said to me, mate, you're fit, you'll get through this. And I said, do me a favour. I said, I still want to be able to train, move around, do stuff. And I said, he says, what sort of stuff? I said, be able to wrestle and so on. And he was so good. He's put titanium plates through my chest.
I remember we told you, he gave you the deluxe model. He
gave me the deluxe model to be able to...
Terminator material.
But exactly what he said is what happened. So, you know.
Well, mate, I remember it was actually just a few months ago, and I saw how hard you were training. I thought, this is as fit as I've ever seen you. And I'd been a bit slack. I remember saying to you, I said, you were training with Little John, and you killed him, poor little bloke. And I said, gee, Sam, that's inspired me. You go, why? And I said, because I'm in good health, and I've just sort of become complacent, not training hard. And thank you. And you look at me like, I go, dude, what you've come back from, once again, they said it was impossible, you're never going to make it. And how are you now? You good?
I'm great, mate. Besides this frigging flu a week ago, I'm fine. That's why my voice is a bit distorted.
You've been travelling a lot. You're doing a lot of coaching in Bulgaria, of all places?
Yeah, Bulgaria's massive. I've signed a 5-year deal over there. I basically go out as one of the head key coaches, and we get students come from all over the world.
All over the world?
The last one we had was nearly 2,000.
Really?
Yeah, huge.
And you went from there to the US, you're back here now?
I'm back here and back to China in a couple of weeks, and then back to Perth after that. So
training people? Or with training stuff?
Coaching. Got guys that are fighting all over the world. So
now, one of the other things you've done, which I've run into you on the circuit a couple of times, is kind of keynote speaking, talking to corporations and inspiring. And mate, you've always been great to listen to because of your grit and determination and honesty with those key factors that saying, but you've got to do the fucking work. You know, it's rewarding.
Very, very rewarding. For me, it's my time to shine and give back to the world of what it's given me. For me, it's about educating the younger generation coming through that it's not all easy and it's okay to be hard. Just don't fucking stop. Don't give up.
Now, we're going to finish up in a minute, but if you could have a word to your younger self, to a young Sam, kid from Brunswick coming out, done his soccer, you're starting out in the kickboxing, what would you tell yourself? What would your advice be?
I think my biggest advice is understand what the word discipline means. Yeah? Really understand what discipline means. Really understand the goal or the dream that you have. Set plans around it. Work on how to get there. It's not going to be easy. And don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of not fucking trying.
Yeah, you know. Always people say, what's your greatest fear? I said, it's dying with regret. 100%. Just being someone who goes through life going, what if I had a crack? What if I had some bigger balls? What if I had just believed in myself? And I think that's what we've always talked about and had in common is just, it's got to be fucking unstoppable, Sam.
Yeah, and that's all it takes. And you know, I seem to always find a way, always. And I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to someone say, oh, what's he doing asking, you know? Well, he shouldn't be asking. Don't give a fuck. I'll lower my guard if I have to. I have no problem. I got no ego. You can't bank the fucking thing. If you could bank ego, I know people out there that'd be billionaires and trillionaires.
Yeah. You've never changed, man. Like,
and I won't. No. And I won't. And I'll profess it, and I'll try and teach a generation of today.
Yeah, you know? Whether you've been a rock star and you were a world champion or a barista, it's the same fucking Sam. Yeah. And when I see you in the morning torturing your clients, he's a sadist. If you haven't seen him. And Sam does personal training out of here and still coaches in a few fight gyms around Melbourne. He's been a big part of the Doherty's gym structure and family, and you've kind of got this place from day one. I know when we first met, you probably...
Mate, you've left that... I remember you opening up that door for me from day one, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting in front of you, and you've left it open.
Always.
You've left it open, and... you know, it's mutual too because I respect your place as if it's mine, and I know you do exactly the same if you're in my place. So this is long-standing friendship, and I think till death do us part, mate.
Mate,
You know
until
what
the
I'm
end.
saying?
I love you, mate. Thank
You
for
very
coming
much.
on and inspiring. You're one of the most resilient, inspiring blokes I've ever met. Honestly, just honoured to be in your circle.
Thank you.
Sam Greco, folks, enjoy this one.